If you click on this video because you're wondering whether tornadoes are actually a big problem in the Wichita area, then you are not alone. Because this is actually one of the first questions I get from every family that's thinking about moving here. And now I've lived in the Wichita area my entire life, and I can tell you this. Growing up, we definitely had some moments where the weather got really serious and my family had to take some precautions. So if you're planning a move here, there are a few things that I'd absolutely want you to know and be ready for before you come. But the real question is, are tornadoes something that you should genuinely worry about if you're raising kids in Wichita or one of the suburbs? Or is the reality totally different from the scary headlines and storm chaser videos that you see online? So today we're going to be breaking that all down, and some of the numbers and stats might just surprise you. All right, let's start by being honest about the weather here. So tornadoes absolutely do happen in Kansas because we're in a part of the country where the warm air from the Gulf can crash into the cooler, drier air from the west, and that mix can create some pretty dramatic spring storms. So there's no point in pretending that that is not true. And yes, our area has seen a few major tornadoes over the years, and most people instantly think of the big Andover tornado from 1991, and that one reached F5 strength once it crossed into Butler County and caused a whole lot of damage. And more recently, in 2022, there was another strong tornado that hit Andover. It was rated an EF3, and it left a long path of destruction across a lot of neighborhoods. So these storms are totally real, and the concern they create is valid. So if you're a parent thinking about moving here, it makes sense that you want clarity about what your family might face. But here's where the perception and the reality start to separate. The first thing you need to understand is that tornadoes are incredibly localized. A storm can take a narrow path through one subdivision while life stays completely normal just a couple streets away. And even during the biggest outbreaks, most of Wichita and the surrounding suburbs see nothing more than heavy rain, lightning, and a little bit of wind. And honestly, the way that outsiders think about tornadoes here is kind of how I feel about like alligators when I visit Florida. When I'm there, I'm on edge the entire time. I'm scanning like every pond, thinking that something is waiting for me there. Meanwhile, the locals are walking around barefoot, fishing off the docks like nothing is happening. And that's exactly how I feel about tornadoes here in Kansas. People who didn't grow up here worry a lot more than the people who actually live here. So yes, the threat exists, but it's not the everyday danger that people imagine from the outside. And once you understand how rare these events actually are and how well prepared Wichita families are for them, the fear starts to look very different from the reality on the ground. So this is where the fear starts to meet the facts, and honestly, once you see the numbers, the picture looks very different from what most people imagine. First, let's talk about Wichita specifically. So Wichita is in Sedgwick County, and since the official records began in 1950, the county has recorded a little over one tornado per year on average. And that's it. We don't get one a week, not even one a month, just a little over one per year over the 70 years that they've collected the data. But the real key is the strength of those storms. More than 90% of all tornadoes in Kansas are on the weaker side. They're rated EF0 or EF1. Those are the ones that might knock down a fence, take some shingles off your house, or break a tree limb, but they're not the giant twisters that you see in the movies. The stronger tornadoes, like the EF3 to EF5 types, make up only a tiny fraction of all the tornadoes statewide, and they are extremely rare in Sedgwick County. And in fact, each Kansas county only sees a handful of strong tornadoes over the last few decades, and some of the counties have had one or two, but most haven't had any at all. But Sedgwick County has seen a few EF3s over the years, including one in the Oaklawn area in 2012, but the truly violent storms people fear most have almost always hit outside the core of Wichita. And here's the most important point, and it's that tornadoes are incredibly localized, like I mentioned before. So a tornado might carve a narrow path through one neighborhood, while a quarter mile away, someone is grilling dinner or watching a movie without realizing anything even happened. And even during the biggest outbreaks, most of Wichita and the surrounding suburbs see nothing more than just heavy rain and wind. But now let's talk about safety. Over the past 70 plus years of the recorded data that we have, Sedgwick County has had very few tornado-related fatalities, especially when compared to the size of the population and the length of the timeline. Most of the tragic losses happened during older storms long before modern warnings and technology existed. But today we have advanced radar, instant phone alerts, and a huge network of outdoor warning sirens. And families get a lot of notice when a storm becomes more serious. So when you stack the actual numbers against the fear, things look a lot calmer nowadays than they used to. So yes, tornadoes are a part of our weather season, but the odds of a tornado directly affecting your specific neighborhood are extremely low. And the odds of a strong or life-threatening tornado hitting your exact home are even lower. And as we'll talk about in the next section, on top of those odds, we're also very prepared here in Wichita, so let's go there next. So if tornadoes are that rare, why do we still talk about them here locally? And it's really just because we need to be prepared in case these things happen. It's just part of our rhythm every spring, and it's something that every family knows how to handle if it does come up. And first, it starts with understanding the basics, and you'll learn pretty quickly the difference between a tornado watch and a tornado warning. So a tornado watch, it just means that the conditions are right for storms to form a tornado, and it covers a big area and it can last just a couple of hours. And when you're under a watch, nobody really panics, kids still finish their games, and people still go out to dinner. And you just keep an eye on the radar and you want to stay aware of if anything develops. A tornado warning, on the other hand, is the real deal. So that means a tornado has been spotted and is showing up on the radar, and now is the time to move to your safe space in the house. But the good news is that warnings are very specific, and they usually name the exact towns or neighborhoods in the path of the tornado. And most of the time, those areas are pretty small and targeted, or just out in the middle of nowhere, and you don't need to worry about it. And overall, Wichita does a great job getting those warnings out to people, and Sedgwick County has a huge network of outdoor sirens, plus modern phone alerts, weather apps, and TV meteorologists who take this stuff really seriously. So between your phone, the sirens, the news, it's almost impossible to miss a warning around here. But now let's talk about what families actually do if they are in a tornado warning. So most homes in the Wichita area have basements, especially in the suburbs like Andover, Mays, and Bel Air. So if a storm becomes serious, we take our kids downstairs, we grab a blanket, and we just hang out until the warning expires. And if your home doesn't have a basement, the plan is pretty simple. You just need to go to the lowest floor in the home and find an interior room, like in the middle of the house, that doesn't have any windows. So essentially you want to put a couple walls between you and the outside of the home. Bathrooms and closets typically end up being good options for this, or laundry rooms also work great. And the schools here are also just as prepared, so kids do tornado drills every year just like they do fire drills, and it's not meant to scare them, it's just meant to make sure they're confident and ready so that if there is a warning, they know exactly what to do and they don't have to think about it. So the truth is, when you live here, this becomes second nature to you. It's like Floridians with hurricanes or Californians with earthquakes. Over time, the process becomes so simple and routine that it barely feels like a disruption to everyday life. And most of the time, you're just downstairs for maybe 15 minutes, and then you can go right back to whatever you were doing before. So overall, that preparation, that routine, it's a big part of why families feel so safe here during the storm season. Okay, so at this point, you're probably realizing that tornadoes are a very small part of life here. We might spend a few hours an entire year paying attention to storms, but the other 99% of the year, we're just living normal, happy family lives. And honestly, that's the part that people forget when they think about Kansas weather. Wichita is an amazing place to raise a family, and on a typical weekend, you'll see people at the Sedgwick County Zoo, walking out the trails of the Chisholm Creek Park, catching a wind surge baseball game, or taking their kids to one of the dozens of splash pads and playgrounds around the city. And the suburbs here are a huge draw as well. We have places like Andover, Mays, Bel Air, and Goddard that are filled with great schools, quiet streets, and new neighborhoods where the kids can make friends really fast. And overall, families love having short commutes, bigger backyards, and more space to spread out without giving up easy access to everything in the Wichita area. And when the storms do happen, one of the best parts of living here is the community that shows up afterwards. You'll see a lot of neighbors checking in on each other, people grabbing chainsaws to clear brush if we have wind that blows down trees. There's a lot of churches and volunteers and even the military from McConnell Air Force Base that jump in when the help is needed. And that sense of care and togetherness is a big reason why people stay here for generations. So if you think about it, every place has something that you probably plan for. Florida has hurricanes, California has earthquakes and wildfires, the Northeast has blizzards, and here we just plan for storms in the spring. And because the risk is so low, the warnings are really good, and the preparation is simple, most families don't even give it a second thought. And it's honestly a trade-off that is more than worth it for the lifestyle, the affordability, the schools, and the community that you get in return here in Wichita. So, is it a crazy idea to move your family to Wichita if you're worried about tornadoes? Not at all. The fear you might be feeling right now is completely normal, especially if you're coming from a place that doesn't deal with storms like this. But once you understand how rare these events are, how localized they tend to be, and how prepared our families and communities are, the picture looks really different. And for most of us who grew up here, tornadoes are not something that we think about every day. They're just one small part of our weather season, and the rest of the year is filled with school events, sports, neighborhood cookouts, and all the other things that we enjoy in the city. And so if you're thinking about moving to Wichita or moving within the city or one of the surrounding suburbs, I would love to help you get a clear picture of what life here is actually like. I've got a few free resources that you can check out in the description below, and you're also welcome to reach out to me. My contact information should be in the description below. So there you have it. That's everything you need to know about tornadoes in Kansas. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.